In yet another round of musical chairs in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, the city's mayor, Gary van Niekerk, and his deputy, Babalwa Lobishe, have both resigned ahead of a restructure of the executive committee. Essentially, they've swapped positions. Let's bring in political analyst and local governance expert, Dr Harlan Cloete. Dr. Cloete, it's great to have you with us on the program. Such interesting times. I don't think I've ever seen this happen. So they've resigned, and the new Nelson Mandela Bay is the former deputy Nelson Mandela. The new Nelson Mandela Bay Metro is the former deputy Nelson Mandela Bay mayor. Am I getting that right? Babalwa Lobishe.
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the viewers. No, they essentially just swapped. So the ANC now occupies the mayor position, if I understand it, and the leader of the NA, he now occupies the deputy. He used to be the mayor.
Yeah. So Gary van Niekerk says that it was a decision that was made for political stability. What do you make of his analysis of the situation?
Look, I was in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality last week, and I had a discussion. We're busy with a research project there. But the long and short is that the ANC, could have gone into a coalition with the DA because both of them occupy 48 seats. Mm-hmm. I must say I'm surprised at how we have not managed to copy what's on the GNU to the local and the provincial spheres. Because, if you want stability, if you want this to work, democracy starts at the door of the local municipality. And I must say, one would have expected that the ANCDA coalition at the national would spill down to the local, which did not happen. Yeah,
that makes sense. It would make sense. So do you reckon this is for political expediency?
Yes, no, of course. Look, this is local government election 2026. So you want to be seen as a political party as delivering. We've seen that in Tshwane, where Action SA have looked at the scoreboard and looked at their performance in national and said, if we really want to hang on to our power or put ourselves in a better position to get maximum votes, we need to make sure that we are in the executive. And this is what has happened in Nelson Mandela Bay, where the ANC is looking at the scoreboard and saying it cannot have a minority party with only 2 seats in council leading. Mm-hmm. And so it wants to be seen by its elected as delivering. And so the executive mayoral position is a very influential position. It's a position where you can make things happen. And the ANC has looked at the scoreboard and says we've got 16, 17 months left to local government elections in 2026. By all accounts, it will probably take place around November. Let's us see what we can do in the next 16 months to convince our voters to keep voting for us. Mm-hmm.
So do you think, that, you were talking about the government of national unity at national level somehow filtering down to the local municipality level. Do you think that this decision somehow now paves the way for a potential partnership, I'm not sure what form that would take, between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance? At least in Nelson Mandela Bay.
Look, if they could, for the ANC and the DA to get together in Nelson Mandela Bay, they've got the majority. Mm-hmm. They both did not get an outright majority, which is 50% plus 1. And so the ANC decided to let me call it, for a lack of a better word, gang up against the DA. So the voters in this country have shown in May this year that it no longer trusts the big players with a majority. Now, if you look at the dynamics of local government, there's a lot of community-based parties that says, we don't trust, we don't want to be governed by national parties. We look and we put our hope into smaller political parties. Smaller political parties are saying they position themselves as kingmaker because they're never going to get 50% plus 1. So for them, it's always about how do we get the most out of this deal by hanging on to one of the 2 bigger political parties. Yeah. Now, in the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality, it's the ANC and the DA. And so instead of working together as number one, or because both are 48 is my reading of that, they decided to rather throw their lot with the smaller political parties to govern that city.
Yeah. I'm confused about how this contributes to stability in Nelson Mandela Bay. Let's not forget as well, Dr. Cloete, that the metro has been plagued by all sorts of challenges for a number of years.
No, you're right. You know, if you say stability, what do you mean stability? Normally, if you have political stability, that spills over to the administration, which is always a worry. But so one would assume that there is some sort of a coalition agreement between the ANC and the smaller political parties, where we say, okay, let's look at positions and let's look at the administration. If we have administrative instability, that spills over into poor service delivery. And so what we desperately need in this country is a pragmatic approach to local governance. The new bill before Parliament says that by 2026, if we do not have one party having an outright majority, you will have an executive committee system which allows for proportional representation in an executive instead of this all-powerful mayoral committee now, where the mayor appoints his committee with smaller parties. In the future, say for example, this was the scenario in 2026, the ANC and the DA would be equal representation in an executive committee with smaller parties. So if there's 10 executive seats, it could be that the ANC have 4, the DA have 4, and smaller parties have 1 each in terms of forming an executive. So I'm very hopeful that if this bill goes through, post-2026, we will have a stronger stability, because the executive system, in my view, is the future, because South Africans no longer trust one of the big parties by giving them a majority. And where we've seen an increase in coalition in 2021, that coalitions will probably increase to over 100 in 2026.
I want to talk about the issue of South African voters and trust in a moment. But do you think that this executive structure that you've described to us will get rid of the kind of horse trading that we're seeing now, which is seemingly for the sole purpose of political expediency and not necessarily for stabilizing or for service delivery?
No, definitely, because, you know, a lot of these small parties, it's a tail wagging the dog. And so smaller parties wants positions, you know, and then jobs. And so that is what the research shows in any case, you know. And so what the new system says, like I explained, executive system, you have proportional representation in terms of your performance. And it also introduces a threshold in terms of who can be elected into council. And so it tries to stabilize it. But, you know, local government is in desperate need of stabilization in terms of its local governance. So democracy starts and ends at the local door of the municipality.
Absolutely, as the service delivery.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, and I think what we will see in growing to the build up to the local government elections, because the stakes are so high, you know, I think you will have more and more community-based political parties coming to the fore and trying to get into council. Because look, becoming a councillor is the first step into the middle class. And so given our high rates of unemployment, there's a lot of career politicians also out there. And so this is the first step to get into the middle class and to break poverty, your own personal poverty.
Dr. Cloete, you know, when South Africans and voters in metros like Nelson Mandela Bay, Johannesburg springs to mind as well, when we see this kind of chopping and changing of what should be a key position in a metro, that of mayor, it's the first citizen of the metro essentially. How do voters read that in a context where, you know, in the space of 12 or 18 months, you might lose track of who the mayor is in Nelson Mandela Bay or Johannesburg?
No, exactly. That's what's happening. I think there's a danger that people will lose hope and faith in local governance. They say, you know, why vote? In any case, once you've taken my vote, you do it with whatever you please. And so what we desperately need is increased accountability and greater interaction between citizens. Young people specifically, we've seen a very low voter turnout when it comes to young South Africans who are saying that, and there's a danger that they lose faith in the democratic project. People are saying, I'm not getting, where's my democratic dividend? We elect you and then you forget about us. I was in a workshop with a community where we did community participation, And they said, you know what, councillors only respond when they see the smoke. I asked, what do you mean? He says, no, once we burn tires, then you get the attention of the municipality. So there's a social distance between councillors and the people. And I think where we are going to is a co-created space of governance where citizens also have a say. And so South Africans need to become more vocal and more active, not just burning tires, but more vocal in terms of local government and their participation in that.
And we have a strong history in active citizenry, which we need to tap into yet again. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dr. Harlan Cloete, let me thank you for your time this afternoon, political analyst and local governance expert with the University of the Free State.